Witness Adam Wegman, a writer who, up until tonight, has never paid much mind to the idea of an artist's social responsibility. He's about to learn that there's more to art than entertainment. He's about to, you know what? I think we can beat this. Is Sophie here?
Cut.
Sophie?
That's a cut.
Sorry, Owen. No. Sorry, guys.
Hi everybody, my name is Dom Griffin. I am a film critic, and you are watching the Armchair Auteur, which is an ongoing video series I do where I talk about movies and sometimes TV. So if you're the kind of person who likes movies and television and pop culture, you like hearing people talk about it, please consider subscribing. If you're new to the channel, I typically don't talk about television quite as often, but today we're going to be talking about The Twilight Zone, as I'm sure you could tell from the intro. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the 2019 reboot of The Twilight Zone that's exclusive to the CBS All Access app that is executive produced and developed by Jordan Peele, Academy Award winning comedian turned filmmaker, responsible for such films as Get Out, which is an awesome movie that I love, and Us, which is a movie that's largely pretty good, that I reviewed last year, and I sort of famously completely misconstrued a very important plot point of the narrative. Anyway, the second season of The Twilight Zone just dropped this past weekend, and I'd never seen the first season. I like Jordan Peele a lot, and I'm glad that he's becoming a big name in Hollywood, even though I'm a little bit wary of the fact that so many people seem to not understand that him producing something and putting his name on something does not mean he's writing and directing it. So anything that even loosely bears his name in the trades or announcements of new series or movies has people in the comments yes, Jordan's a genius, it's gonna be great, and it's maybe, maybe not. Like his Candyman, case in point. His Candyman is not really his Candyman. It's written and directed by Nia DaCosta, but everyone's calling it Jordan Peele's remake because that's just how this thing seems to work. Anyway, that's sort of why I was not immediately gung-ho about watching or thinking about the new Twilight Zone. Growing up, I liked the Twilight Zone very much. I like watching reruns when Sci-Fi Channel airs them and stuff. I think Rod Serling's an amazing, incredible writer, and the show has a lot of really great episodes that really stretch the possibilities of speculative fiction, especially in television. But I'm not a Twilight Zone expert. But I was recently discussing the series with a Twilight Zone expert, my good friend Cam Diordio, noted leftist himbo comic book scribe Cam Diordio, who's a lifelong Twilight Zone fan and knows a lot much more about the series than I do. And he had watched the first season and I had not. We were talking about it a little bit, and it made me kind of want to watch the new season because he was explaining the plot of the season 2 premiere to me, and I was I'm kind of curious to see what that's like. I'll watch it and then maybe another episode and see what happens. Because if you guys watch the channel, I don't watch a ton of television. I'm much more of a movie guy. I go through periods where I'll binge shows, but I'm not someone who's always looking for a new show to binge. I've never finished Deadwood, and I have people in my life that hate me because of it. So I'm not a big TV guy. I used to be, but not so much anymore. That said, I watched the season 2 premiere of the show, and I thought it was okay, but not very good. And what I did and didn't like about it was very simple. And because I wanted to know if there was a difference between the current season and the previous season, I did go back and rewatch about half of the first season, because the episodes are they're freestanding. You don't have any season-long arc you have to follow. I just watched a couple of random ones out of order based on the writing credits and what actors were in them and stuff, whether or not it seemed like something I'd enjoy. And I only liked one of those episodes. It's the episode Replay, which stars Sanaa Lathan as a mother who's trying to save her son from police brutality by using a time-traveling camcorder. It's kind of the only one of the episodes from the first or second season that I've watched anyway of this reboot that seem to be true to the spirit of the Twilight Zone, not just the concept of the execution. The big thing about the show to me is that it captures the basics of the Twilight Zone, the iconography of it, the opening narration, the closing narration with Jordan Peele swapped out for Rod Serling, and it has the idea of there's always some kind of genre twist, and then every episode ends with a twist in something, but there's not the same irony to the twists of classic Twilight Zone episodes. In season 1, they actually remake a classic Twilight Zone episode, the Shatner episode, with he's on the plane and there's a gremlin on the plane, that they also remade for the Twilight Zone movie. And that segment was directed by George Miller of Mad Max Fury Road fame. That is also the same movie where John Landis killed some kids with a helicopter. Anyway, Jordan Peele's team and everyone got together and remade that episode with Adam Scott, but they replaced the gremlin with a haunted podcast about the plane crashing. And it's a really stupid episode, and it's just if you were only to watch this as sort of the idea, the concept of here's the new Twilight Zone, you would just never want to watch more Twilight Zone. At least that's how I felt. But I'm also a glutton for punishment, so I did watch more Twilight Zone, and that's what this video is about. Here's the thing. I wanted to kind of like it because I liked the old Twilight Zone, and I've seen parts of like the last time they rebooted the show, I think like Forrest Whitaker. Was that Outer Limits? I don't even remember. Watching the new version of the show, the main thing that got me was how essentially Jordan Peele and all the different writers and directors who've assembled for the show like have like a problem, and the problem is that like this show is supposed to be a modern interpretation of the Twilight Zone, but like most modern audiences already have that, and it's just Charlie Booker's Black Mirror, which is another show that I'm actually not that big a fan of. The difference though is that like Black Mirror does like shorter seasons and much longer episodes, so like it'll be a long time between seasons, but the stories you get do tend to be like a little bit more developed and like kind of thought out, at least it seems like. Something like Black Mirror, every episode's like an hour and a half, like it's closer to an hour and a half, like every episode's like a movie kind of, and you only get a few at a time. Whereas the Twilight Zone was like 10 episodes, and each one, even though the original Twilight Zone series was much closer to like the 30-minute format, most of the episodes in the first season are like 40, 50, close to an hour, and they're much closer to like a general cable episode of television. And like the Twilight Zone concept works a lot better in like a shortened form because you don't need a lot of plot complications. Like as the story goes along, you don't have to do so much work adding side characters and extra orbital things. Like you can kind of focus on a character or a town or a group of people and a concept and like work it out to its logical conclusion with some sort of like ironic twist. And hopefully the ironic twist and like the conclusion and like the reveal, coupled with what you've seen already, reveals something about society at the time. And like that's kind of like the shtick of the Twilight Zone. It's like a fun speculative fiction thing that also means something. And that's not dissimilar from what Charlie Brooker does with Black Mirror, except with Black Mirror it's much more focused on like technology and like future and stuff like that. And as a result, like the show is more wildly inconsistent. Like I feel like the heights of Black Mirror are considerably better than like the episodes of Twilight Zone I've seen, but the lows are probably like similar. You know what I mean? Like it's like the kind of the same thing. With the Twilight Zone, I think the issue is that everyone involved has got the idea of what a Twilight Zone episode is like without the meat, without the substance that makes it special. And if you would think that I'm being like an asshole or like something about my interpretation of the first season, the season finale of the first season, spoiler alert, this whole video is gonna have spoilers for Twilight Zone episodes, so just like roll with it. But the first season, the end of the first season is literally a metatextual episode about a character writing and shooting an episode of the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone reboot. And the central conflict of that episode is about whether or not the show is being true to its roots in Rod Serling. So like it's a whole meta debate about the fact that the show is essentially just like gotcha moments and twist endings, but none of the actual heart or substance of the original show. They baked it into the finale as if throughout the production of the first season they were like, yeah, people are probably not gonna fuck with this. In the finale, we'll let them know that we know that they're not fucking with this, and we're gonna get them that way.
I mean, you know, our show is sci-fi, right?
Yeah, but it's the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Twilight Zone isn't just monsters on a plane wing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing being said of importance, then it's just campfire stories.
So you don't like campfire stories?
And much of the episode is actually pretty good. Zazie Beetz plays like the writer of the episode. Seth Rogen plays Seth Rogen, playing the lead of the episode, and Jordan Peele plays himself. And as we're watching it unfold, and like they're having these like debates backstage about the construction of the show and what the show's really about, it says some interesting things, but then they build the debate, like the central debate about what the Twilight Zone is or isn't, and then instead of like answering it or even like saying something meaningful about that debate or falling down on one of the two sides, the show just ends with like a Tupac Coachella hologram version of Rod Serling showing up and like literally whisking the main character off to the Twilight Zone. And it's really stupid, and like it's meant to be like an homage-y sort of like sweet thing, but it doesn't work or make any sense. And to me it just seems like, hey, we all know that we haven't quite grasped what makes this show important, but who cares? Fuck it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was as if they, instead of picking a side, they came down on the side of like, look, you're gonna watch this shit regardless, fuck you, whatever. And when I watched that episode, I did kind of feel like, you know what, I don't think I really want to watch like more Twilight Zone. I think like, I'm good. I don't have to do this. I have other things I could be watching. Like I'm straight. But looking at the writing credits for the new season, there were a few episodes I was curious about. Most notably, I noticed that Jordan Peele had written an actual episode. In the first season, he has a story by credit on the remake of the plane episode, but he doesn't have Like, this is not an episode he full on wrote, which is why when I saw people who actually liked it praising Jordan Peele for it, I'm like, he's like the executive producer. He doesn't have that much fucking to do with the show, you know? So the idea that he actually wrote an episode for the season, I was like, you know what? I want to see what that is. I want to see what Jordan Peele, who's like spearheading this whole reboot and like is like the zeitgeisty filmmaker of the moment, I want to see what his interpretation of a Twilight Zone episode is. I watched a few other season 2 episodes that were like watchable. Kinda. There's one from the guys that directed The Endless that involves like a giant squid and like Joel McHale. That one's like okay. There's like a really shitty one with Journey Smollett from Birds of Prey that's like really terrible that I hated. But you know, we're gonna talk about episode 2 of season 2, written by Jordan Peele, directed by J.D. Dillard, and it's called Downtime. Obvious spoilers for Downtime. There's literally no way to discuss an episode of The Twilight Zone without spoiling The Twilight Zone. The basic plot of Downtime, which actually does hew much closer to the 30-minute runtime that is ideal for The Twilight Zone. Marina Baccarin, who you may know from Firefly, plays a woman who is doing a job interview for a promotion at a hotel that she works at. She's giving like her shtick to her boss, who like seems kind of like not present in the moment, about why she's perfect for it, and tells these like razor sharp little anecdotes about how good she is at customer service and like how like that's her whole shtick. Her whole life, she's always known how to like cut to the core of making people happy, of doing the right thing in the right moment. She gets the promotion. She's gonna run this fancy schmancy hotel. We get to watch her in action as she, you know, handles a difficult guest situation or whatever. And we're like, oh, cool. This lady's like super capable. She's really good at pleasing people. And she just had like this big triumphant moment in her like her life or career. She's like doing well. And as she's like on her lunch break or whatever, like this giant orb shows up in the sky and everyone freaks out and she has like this like traumatic moment, and then the entire like town around her is like frozen, just staring up at this thing. Some people are like actually talking, but other people aren't. They all seem confused and stuff. And then all of a sudden they're all like just like this like dome thing. She freaks out because this is spooky. Like, who wouldn't freak out? And she runs home to see her husband, played by Coleman Domingo from Beale Street Could Talk, and all of a sudden he's like a completely different person. Like, he's speaking with like an Irish accent. He actually doesn't know who she is and what's going on and stuff, and like he's alluding to the fact that like it's just downtime. Like, you know, wake up and everything will be fine. And she thinks she's having a bad dream or something. So then we get the big reveal that downtime is like maintenance time, because the world that Marina Baccarin's character lives in is a fucking video game. She's essentially living in a massive multiplayer online role-playing game about just life. It's just like, they call it identity tourism, which seems like an interesting concept that is then just never picked up ever again. So the whole thing is, she's not real. She's a video game character that like a real person, like this like male who's married and has kids, has been playing. And when the game went into downtime for them to like do maintenance and fix the servers and stuff, he didn't properly like disconnect from the game, so they're like stuck and like brain linked, and he's essentially in a coma. So they need her to do like a force release log out of the game so that they can save this man's life. And she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't believe it, and also because it means that she would like cease to exist, and she doesn't want to accept that she's not real, blah 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 blah. And the man's wife logs into the game, like their emergency contact, to talk to her and be like, you're my husband and you're important, and like this is a character you play in a game, and I need you to come back because we have kids and I love you. And she decides, okay, fuck it, maybe who I am, this character that I am in this game, is actually just who he really is, and that's just me. I'm just in a different body. You would think maybe they're trying to say like something interesting about like identity or like gender or something, but no. She doesn't want to actually do it. She does not want to actually give up this version of herself, so she chooses not to. And then they have to escalate like customer service within the game, and the guy shows up, played by Tony Hale from like Veep and stuff, and he basically tries to explain to her like things are different now, that the real life guy that was playing her is no longer in a coma, he's actually straight up dead, and that it wasn't an accident or a mistake with the game. Like, he literally killed himself. Like, he overdid his pills and drank before playing the game, knowing this was going to happen. This was like what he wanted. He wanted to die into the game, is how I kind of interpret it. So she's like, okay, but like, no, I do want to wake up. Now that I know my entire life is a video game, I don't want to be here. He's like, yeah, but if you wake up, you have nowhere to go to. So just stay here, run your little fake hotel, don't break character, and everything will be fine. And that's what she does. She signs like some waiver, and then the game restarts, and she's just doing her job, basically. But then like the twist, if you can even call it that, is that the wife shows up into the game again and decides to check into the hotel for an extended stay to kind of see what happens. Because like this person is the last vestige of her husband who's dead, is female hotel manager he enjoyed playing in a video game. Now, it's one of the better episodes of the new version of the Twilight Zone. Like, it's pretty well written in terms of like efficiency and like some of the character work's okay. Basically, like, I rewatched it a second time, and rewatching a second time, some of the things that I thought were dumb actually fit selling the premise, the idea that they're in a video game and stuff, like the way the side characters react to the orb and everything. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's this in terms of like the twist works when you rewatch it, like that kind of test passes out flying colors. Great stuff, guys. The problem is that like the twist is like meaningless. Like, it's not about anything. It doesn't say like anything. First of all, in order to even get into this episode, you have to accept that the premise is like really like kind of like dumb, because like what person would actually, I know people play The Sims and stuff, but like in terms of like making something about like gaming culture and the online world of identity and like people becoming different people when they log in and stuff like that, in all of that, what adult person has a fantasy world where they dream of fucking running a hotel? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems very like an odd choice. Like, this guy, his life is so bad that he wants to live this fantasy life of working really hard and like pulling himself up by his bootstraps and then running a luxury hotel. Like, is that what, like, is the guy, they sort of imply maybe the guy's well off or something, so it's like, are rich people, is their fantasy to be like glass ceiling middle class women? I don't understand where they're going with that. So when I watched it at first, before I do the twist and everything else, you know, when you're watching a Twilight Zone episode, there's always going to be kind of the part of your brain that is like working at figuring out the twist, for better or worse. I was taken with the episode because I am someone who's worked customer service like his entire adult life, and the skills it takes to be good at it and to solve problems and help people and stay smiling and stuff is very taxing on your spirit and your soul and your identity, because you have to be kind of like a fake version of yourself to do the job well. So I thought dramatizing that, there's different ways you could take that and say something profound about the world we live in and the nature of labor and how people rely on their jobs so heavily that they sublimate who they actually are in order to survive. Like, I thought, oh, cool, there's some cool shit that they can play with here. That's not really what happens, though. Like, it doesn't sit... Like, if it says anything about labor and that stuff, it's essentially saying that, like, you could, like, you know, awaken, I guess, to, like, class consciousness and, like, I don't know, like, solidarity and, like, throwing off your chains, or you could just sort of, like, pretend that your shitty job that is obviously meaningless is the most important thing, and if you do that, then, like, you'll find love. Like, it's just, it's thrown together, and what I realized is that every episode of the show has this kind of construction where they come up with, like, a hook and a twist, like, first, and then have to re-engineer the drama to make it work without ever considering, like, okay, but what is this about? What is this saying? Why are we saying it? Why are we doing it? Why are we making this show? And that's cool for, like, certain kinds of shows. You could definitely have a show where it's just an entertaining plot and a cool little thing, and that's fine, and, like, people watch it. They'll binge, like, 14 hours straight on Netflix because they don't want to live their real lives, and they'll move on with it, and that's fine, no big deal. Like, they don't need any kind of meaning. And maybe you could say something about that. You could say something about people getting jacked into entertainment because they don't want to think about their real lives. And maybe this was this guy's entertainment, and now he's just living in it forever. But that's not really there either. It's just this hodgepodge of, like, an interesting premise, a couple of cool little moments, and then it's over, and nothing. And that's how I felt about every episode that I watched. Every episode felt like, huh, that happened. Don't know why, but it did, you know? And that's not the feeling you want from the Twilight Zone. Even like a bastardized, nuke reheated in the microwave version of the Twilight Zone to get you to pay a monthly subscription to CBS to watch this in Star Trek or whatever. Like, even that, even just a broadly exploited piece of IP, you would expect slightly more from it than this. But there is no more. There is literally nothing else. And I mean, even the framework they're playing in, like, I generally don't really like a lot of stuff about, like, that idea, those concepts, like video game culture and, like, how your person is an avatar for you or whatever. Like, you know, even that whole realm they're playing in, like, Black Mirror did that, like, considerably better with the San Junipero and Striking Vipers episode. So it's like, it's just, like, it seems, like, embarrassing. And you would think that after a first season that had, like, pretty heavily criticism from a lot of people, that for the second season they would either, like, learn from it or kind of more develop their ideas and episode concepts. And it does feel like the show is attacked identically. It feels like they just did the same things again, but they trimmed the episode lengths a little, and, like, that's it. And they called it a day and they were happy with it. But, like, I'm not happy with it. I thought it kind of sucked. and I haven't finished the show. So maybe there's other episodes that are better than this. Like, you don't have to attack me in the comments. But to me, I figured, you know what? Like, if I give Jordan Peele a chance, and he's the one who's spearheading this thing, we'll see what he does. And what he did was equally middling. So, I mean, maybe it's just coming from him and everyone's kind of following the same suit. But, like, there are a lot of pretty talented writers and directors working on the show, and a lot of really good actors, too. A lot of pretty good performances. It's just that none of it works. And, like, the one episode that's, like, really good that I would tell anyone, hey, you should really watch this, the episode replay from season 1, is actually just extra depressing to watch now because of the heavy police brutality element. So it's, like, the one episode that I feel like got it a little bit too right, and it's kind of uncomfortable to watch at times. But the other ones aren't uncomfortable to watch at all because they're meaningless. They're just blah. It truly feels as if everyone involved was just happy throwing together a sort of basic anthology sci-fi show and calling it The Twilight Zone and caking off of like the iconography of The Twilight Zone and using the goodwill of The Twilight Zone to get people interested without putting in any of the work or self-interrogation or creativity to make it in any way meaningful. And that's probably fine for some people, but I think we all as viewers deserve better. A lot better. That's my take on the new Twilight Zone and why I would not recommend anybody watch it and why I didn't finish watching it. And you probably now understand too why I don't watch as much TV, because this seems to be how I feel a lot of the times when I do watch TV. So here we are. If you guys are interested in like the Twilight Zone, there's like a million fantastic episodes of the Twilight Zone that exists that you could find on the internet and watch instead of this. Or even some of the better episodes of Black Mirror. Like there's literally no smart, healthy reason to watch the new Twilight Zone other than morbid curiosity, which brought me to the dance, and I wish I never showed up. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy content like this, please consider subscribing. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. I'll have another new video out in a couple of days, hopefully. And thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone's being safe and healthy out there. I hope you're wearing your masks when you go out in public. Yeah, just basic stuff. Just be good to each other. Wear masks. Don't be a piece of shit. Don't watch Twilight Zone. Bye.